So now that we're getting to the character design assignment, I know I've shown you some examples already, but now want to show you a couple examples of sort of what not to do, pitfalls and things that have occurred to other students. Obviously, these are all student examples, but they're things you want to avoid. So the first one, which we've been working in Animate for a while, so hopefully you understand this, but this is a great character. It's a very cool design. It cannot be moved, right? This is one image that they drew, in Photoshop, and there's no breakdown points. You can't in this program, or even if you drew this in Illustrator or Animate, if you drew it like this, where it's one solid piece, you can't change it into animation form, and not without redrawing the whole thing. But also in this case, not without redesigning a whole lot of it. The joints are not designed in here. This is designed as like a 2D animated character. So while this is a very cool design, you want to make sure that for this assignment, you are creating something that can itself be later animated. So this is not about handing in a sketch of your character that you'll eventually build. This is about actually building the one you're going to work with, and this is not something that can be worked with for this assignment. Um, so next up, wait, I lied. I have these in an order. There we go. So we have someone that worked in the right program, and even has a few different shapes in here, I believe. She has them, yep, so she has them broken down, the way I ask for, where they're not labeled, unfortunately, but the problem is this is not ever going to be animatable in this program, at least not the way we're doing this. If we had copious amounts of time and if this was a drawing class, then yeah, you can have these separate pieces where have the hair, have a cycle of the hair blowing in the wind, and have cycles for the cloak and everything. So this is set up properly to get started for something like that, mostly, except we're not doing that. We're not learning that. We have not learned any of the skills necessary. All of the tweening that we've done, that doesn't do any of this, right? It would have to be all hand drawn. You need tablets. We haven't talked about hand drawing animation at all, the timing involved in that, the shapes, volumes, etc. So we want to stay away from these overly flowy kinds of ideas. The other problem with both the first example and this one is that everything is pre-posed. This is not a neutral pose. The cape is already up. The wind is already in the hair. The other character, the one foot was in a 3/4 view. The other was forward facing. Um, we need characters in a neutral pose for what we're doing. So next up, this is a nice neutral pose. It's sort of a 3/4 profile. It's something that's been kind of invented for TV animation where you can have characters in a form of a profile, but it's not a perfect profile. So that part is good. So you can have, because you're going to choose one viewpoint for the character. I'll show you a perfect profile later, but this 3/4 profile works really well. The character is kind of facing the audience, but also can move side to side. The problem with this one is just the overabundance of moving parts. Keep in mind, it's a great design. It looks fantastic. And she made it so that it's all, separate pieces on separate layers. Remember, you can work in Illustrator for this assignment. But if you do, you really want to have different layers, which is not an Illustrator thing usually. So this is all set up exactly where we need it to be, except you only have 2 weeks to design the character, and then the final is for animating it is not that much longer. So this is a lot. Now that we have something called joint parenting, these compound legs will be a little bit easier. So we have something that attaches if it's selectable, the lower foot to this leg, and then this part of the leg to this leg, so that when I swing this part around, the other two pieces would follow. We do have that now, but that's still 4 different joint chains, plus a tail, plus 2 wings, plus the head and the face expressions. So this is a lot. So keep in mind that not only are you designing something right now to hand in 2 weeks, but you are designing something that afterwards you're going to animate it and you're going to keep it organized. You're going to have to rig it up in some ways or create replacement parts and all these kinds of ideas. So there's keep in mind the scale of things and what you're going to be able to do. This one I like showing because it was he started here and he ended here, and he kind of knew what he wanted to do, like a snarky, semi-cutish animal. But the first one was very much trying to draw like a just only mildly cartoony dog. And so he gave it like upper leg and lower leg and foot times 4 limbs and a full tail and head and everything. And then we looked at it and I was like, well, remember when you animate X, Y, and Z is going to have to happen. He went, ooh. And so started experimenting on other simpler things before landing on this. Now, obviously, we have also switched species of animal, but this same idea could apply to basically anything. And it was to really, really, really radically simplify things. And instead of having multiple joint chains, every foot is just a little foot. Obviously, there's, these pieces are separating because I haven't selected them properly. There we go. So you can just move each foot around. And that's what the animation was. And we've got that solution here. We went over this last week of we don't necessarily see this whole edge. And so these outlines move, but that's okay. This color matches this color. And then these two are hidden behind the body. The tail can wag back and forth. I think the anchor point is actually even, oh no, it's not. Like that. And the face is already pretty expressive. We can move a couple things around if we want to. But it's such a great progression from where it started, where this was going to be so much to animate. It was also much harder to draw because now when we're looking at this one, we're thinking, oh, no, that's not really how the upper leg is shaped. And then the lower leg should be much thinner. And then how do you connect this to this? It opens up so many more things that have to happen in terms of anatomy. Whereas if you really go out there and break the rules further, you can have a lot more freedom. So someone else who kind of forgot about all the segment animation that we do and the fact that pieces are sliding around. It's a cute little character. It's adorable. I could see this as part of the Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing where that's lots of snarky talk for the humor. But those animators would have lots of drawing tools available to get the hat to wave in the wind and get the cloak to, move back and forth as, for locomotion so it can ripple around. And the face is already a little bit pre-posed with the two different eyes, but we would need lots of replacement parts for that. And there's not a lot that's really going to like move around. And that's where our bread and butter is. So you can have something that's a pretty cool design and still have it not quite work for the type of animation that we're doing. Minimize this. So what to do, how to handle things. So this is the sort of very barest minimum. We've got a bumblebee and it's got its two little wings, its little stinger, and two little legs. Now some of these things have been grouped together. Yeah, this wasn't really prepped for animation. This is very minimal. This is sort of a bare minimum amount of things, but you could animate this using our program. Convert these to movie clips, move the, pivot point down here, and you can come up with some kind of flutter cycle for the wings. We can do something with the face where the expression changes. We can have well, it's impossible to do here because they're so small, but you could have the feet moving around. And of course, if the whole thing is nested inside a movie clip, then you can grab this whole thing and move it around here. You can see these little errant pieces. So when you're drawing, oh, there's all over the place. Remember that this program sometimes likes to separate things out, and that includes white pieces on a white background. So make sure, there you go. Make sure you're not like leaving extra pieces behind or forgetting to fill in a piece as you're working. Some other solutions people have come up with. The floaty parts. So we talked about this in the last video, but this is the most floatiness I've ever seen. The downside to it is that you would better come up with some pretty compelling animation, because when all these parts are this separated and the character is this simple, there's not much to go off of here. So yes, he's adorable. Look at this little dude. And you can see the person was trying to work out color schemes and things like that, which is great. But it is limited. So when you're animating, you're going to have to unlock things. There we go. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit hard to, there we go. Select that. We're going to have to come up with cycles for all the floating parts, and you're going to have to come up with the locomotion for the arms. But this got rid of any need for joints. All these pieces can move independently, so you don't need to design joints and you don't need to animate with them. Another tried and true method is to come up with a form of locomotion where there's no feet hitting the ground. So this character, I think, yeah, here we go. So we've got this like a little bit of a hover. This is a different assignment, very different assignment. So that's why it looks funny. But it's doesn't have to hit the feet don't have to hit the ground, right? So we've got like a hover animation going on. You'll notice that the hands, I think, yeah, little handsy things are like kind of clamping in and out. The arms are connected using, joint tools. Again, we're going to go over that this week, but that is an option. But free float, arms that are connected by joint tools that can go wherever we want. That's very different than planting feet on the ground. Planting feet on the ground is very, very difficult. You'll also notice this is for games. Like I said, this is a very, very different assignment, but the character needed two different views. Now this is an actual proper profile. All the other quote unquote profiles have been 3/4 view, technically 3/4 view, 3/4 view, 3/4 view. It's this like fake 3/4 profile. He did like an actual profile, which means the character is not facing you unless you make a new puppet. So keep that in mind when you're either designing the character or designing the animation. Now, you don't have to go with the 3/4 view. You can go with the front view. Just know that your character's not going to like turn around and walk off stage left because that character isn't facing in that direction. So it's going to limit your, abilities. Oh, I love the cackle. Here we go. Moving the pieces around. The last up is, I call this hinges. So this was designed pre-layer parenting days, joint parenting days. So we have the ability to connect a foot to a leg to a something else and have a complex joint chain. This was designed before that was a tool. So how do you get a character where there's moving parts, but you don't have to worry about this to connect, like 2, 3, 4 part joint chains? And the answer was, to have just simpler hinges. So you can have, little bits aren't going to move, that's okay. A wing. So it's one singular joint. Technically, this is 2 pieces, this foot, but it doesn't have to be. You could do a lot of animation with the leg like this. We can do a lot of animation. No, I don't want. Oh, wait, that's actually going to be okay. I think. There we go. You can do a lot of animation with the head like this, especially if you actually take the whole head, like I just didn't. There it is. This is why we convert things. You guys will be all converting your stuff to movie clips and everything. There we go. Right? So you can get a lot of there we go. A lot of expression, a lot of movement out of simpler joints. You could treat these like ears and have them, shoot up when they're scared and droop down when it's sad and spread out when it's surprised, right? There's a lot of expression you can get from that, and no complex rigging involved. It's all a little bit simpler. So this is another method that people have come up with to make animating a little bit easier. All right, but we want to make sure, we absolutely want to make sure we're remembering that this is a program where all the things will be on separate layers. Um, they have to be separate items. Any kind of tweening, which this is going to use almost necessarily, means separate items on separate layers. If I wanted these three little things to fold in and out, I would actually need distribute to layers. I would need a separate layer for each one. Layer 1, layer 3. There we go, layer 2. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to, scrunch them in for one particular feeling, as opposed to spreading them out for a different one. So yes, when we're working on this, separate pieces that are converted, I know these are not, different assignment. It should be actually like the robot. So the robot, let's see. So we have the different arms, main head, there we go. So you can see he used like lots of layers and folders to kind of keep everything in place. This is the face as it's moving up and down, and all the different pieces are, come on. I gotta be on a keyframe to select anything. There we go. So I think these are all movie clips. But these pieces of the eyes and mouth are also movie clips on separate layers because they're all moving a little bit differently. Hence the cackle back and forth. Right? Laughing right eye. This probably says laughing left eye. Yep. So all different movie clips, all on separate layers. You're not animating for this assignment, but you are making this character prepped for animation, which means it should be, even if you start in Illustrator, it should end up in here. It should be on different layers, pieces. They should be converted to movie clips, and they should all be named properly. I should be able to go through a file and know what I'm looking at. There should be stuff in the library because you've converted things. So organization is going to be part of this too.